What's up, everybody? Matt Gajewski here, back again with the Awesemo team, talking some college football DFS. Ahead of December the 29th, we have 3 games up, 3 games down. One has already been canceled. We'll try to dodge some bullets with the rest of these, but before we get started, make sure to hit that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all other content goes live. Without further ado, we'll bring you behind the glass, taking a look at our data. First game we have here is Virginia Tech taking on Maryland. Virginia Tech is one of the most decimated teams when it comes to the players that they've lost, whether it be through opt-out or just basically through the draft, transfer, everything this team has gone through. They lost their head coach to firing, and now they're 3.5-point underdogs to Maryland here, but still an interesting spot to target. The total's 55, which is pretty healthy. On the year, Virginia Tech's been slow, but they've been run heavy. Maryland's the exact opposite, very fast, very pass heavy there. Braxton Burmeister and Knox Kadum transferred, so Connor Blumrick is going to draw the start. This guy with very limited pass attempts overall, but he does have some chops as a rusher. 231 yards on the ground this year, which is solid for him. Maryland doesn't have a good defense, so even if this guy is just scrambling, 5,500 is pretty cheap for a mobile quarterback here. And Virginia Tech still has a 26-point implied team total, which is pretty good. So Blumrick is interesting. In the backfield, Raheem Blackshear put his name out there for the NFL draft, but he said he's going to play in this game. He's been the lead back for this team, 18 carries in their most recent contest. We know how effective he is as a pass catcher. 32 targets on the year, was 4th on the team. Blackshear is middling in price, but his involvement keeps him in play here. You'll see Malachi Thomas as a change of pace back, but his role has recently declined after he kind of saw a little surge midseason. Among receivers, this is a complete disaster for VT. Trey Turner and Tavian Robinson are gone, so it looks like Caleb Smith is going to be the number one. Caleb Smith only had 260 yards on 37 targets all year, which does not bode well here, but he still should take a big step up. And then we're kind of expecting Dwayne Lofton to be the next man up with 13 targets, only 98 receiving yards. From there, it's anybody's guess who's the next receiver. Probably Jaden Payute. I'm not entirely sure, but you'll probably see more Nick Gallo, the tight end. Again, James Mitchell's been out for the year, so Gallo has kind of played that tight end role, but none of these guys are expensive. They're all below 4K, so it's kind of, I think you just play Caleb Smith because of the consistent role he's had. No need to really get cute unless you're playing massive tournaments. For Maryland, a team that started out hot but dealt with injuries. They lost their top 2 pass catchers, of course, but they go with Talia Tagovailoa, and they throw the ball so much that Tagovailoa averages 298 yards per game through the air. He backdoors his way into 300 yards plenty of times. Not very mobile, just 39 rushing yards, but Tagovailoa gets there with volume, and he's still cheap on DraftKings. He's a little more expensive on FanDuel, but he's certainly affordable on DraftKings, and this is a game that might be worth stacking. In the run game, Maryland's dealt with a ton of transfers. Since the portal opened, they've lost Penny Boone, Isaiah Jacobs. So it looks like you're going to see Tayon Fleet-Davis as the lead back with Colby McDonald and Shalen Famato as the change of pace backs. Famato is a guy that was injured towards the end of the year, and people thought he might be out for the season, but it appears he's healthy enough. He was listed as a co-backup to Tayon Fleet-Davis alongside Colby McDonald. Tayon Fleet-Davis is the guy you'd prefer out of this situation. In the receiving game, no Dante Demas. That means we're probably going to see Raheem Jarrett as the de facto number 1. He has been incredibly volatile since he took over this role. 14 targets, 2 targets, 12 targets. He's all over the board, but he's the best option they have. Chigo Okonkwo, he put his name out there for the draft too, but also said he would play in this game, their tight end. He's been extremely involved of late. He's averaging 9 targets per game over the final 4 games. And just for reference, he only averaged 5 per game on the year. So this is really important. And then outside of that, you also have injuries to Jayshon Jones and Marcus Fleming. So the wide receiver 2 has become Carlos Carriere. Brian Cobbs is splitting time here. So is Daryl Jones, Corey Dykes. Not the most consistent role for these players, but if I am throwing darts towards the ancillary players, it's going to be Jarrett 1, Chig Okonkwo 2, Brian Cobbs 3, and Carlos Carriere 4. Brian Cobbs is very cheap at 3,200, just for reference. Game 2, we have Clemson taking on Iowa State. This game is the least desirable for DFS with a 44-point total. 1-point spread in favor of Clemson. Clemson actually hasn't had many opt-outs. Most of their departures have to do with injury, like Justin Ross won't play in this game due to injury. But other than that, they're relatively intact. Iowa State is as well, but they lost Breece Hall to opt out, the biggest opt out in the game. Both these teams are slow. Clemson prefers the run. Iowa State has been forced into more pass-heavy scripts towards the end of the year. They lost 5 games, all of them by 10 points or less. But DJ Uiagalelei, he has job security with Tyson Fomashan hitting the portal. Uiagalelei is somewhat mobile, 304 yards rushing. As a passer, he is inept, 171.5 yards per game for Uiagalelei. He's only viable in the biggest of tournaments, and I would rather play Blumrick for Virginia Tech. In the backfield, Will Shipley has kind of reasserted himself as the lead back. It seems like every time he gets a grasp on this job, he gets hurt. So it's good to see him out carry Phil Maffa and Kobe Pace, 19 carries to 11 and 7 respectively. Maffa and Pace are going to be change of pace backs for this offense, but it looks like Shipley has sort of worked his way ahead of them again for the 4th or 5th time this year. Shipley certainly in play at 6,900. The other two are just tournament options. Without Justin Ross, this receiving room is a complete disaster. We also have, EJ Williams not expected to play, Braden Galloway hurt, Ladson transfer portal. So who do we even have left? We have Bo Collins, who's averaging 8.5 targets per game over the last 4. He's solid. We have Joseph Nada returning from injury. He allegedly is practicing in full. That is solid for him. He's still the second leading receiver on the team despite missing multiple games. And then we have Dakari Collins, who's averaging 4.8 targets per game over the last 4 too. We likely will also see Davis Allen play a pretty important role at tight end. And the rest of the team, rotational role if we see anybody at all. And that's going to be Will Sweeney, players like that. Even like an Aju's transferred. So this is narrowed a little bit for Clemson. I think we can play some of these guys with some confidence at least. And the preferred option would certainly be Joseph Nada when we adjust for price. Iowa State. Brock Purdy and Charlie Kohler are playing in this game apparently. And Purdy's had the best year of his career. He just hasn't received the volume. And he's averaging 250 yards per game. That's fantastic for Purdy. Completion percentage, yards per attempt are phenomenal. It's just, do you really want to play him in a game with a 44-point total against Clemson's slow offense and stifling defense that doesn't have very many opt-outs? I think there's better options, but Purdy still has some ceiling worth chasing potentially in tournaments. He is mobile with 224 yards on the ground. You can stack him with Xavier Hutchinson and Charlie Kohler. Those are the top 2 options. And I don't really know if you want to get cute here. If you do, it's Jalen Noel. We did see Tariq Milton transfer. Joe Skates is gone. So you do have some condensation between these pass catchers. Like, I don't think you're really going to see a lot of the Daniel Jacksons of the world pop up here. I think it's mainly going to be Hutchinson, Kohler, and Noel, potentially some Chase Allen. He plays a lot as the second tight end, but big blocking role for him. In the backfield, Jarrell Brock has carried the ball 23 times. Deion Silas, 11 times. Eli Sanders, 9. Jarrell Brock was listed as the starter. I don't think he plays the entire Breece Hall role, but he still should be some semblance of a feature back here. 5,700, probably too cheap for the Iowa State lead back. Just don't really know what we're going to get. Brock has not played this role. Breece Hall's occupied this position for the last 3 years, so you're just throwing darts. Final game, Oregon taking on Oklahoma. The best total overall at 60 points, 7-point spread in favor of the Sooners. They've had opt-outs every which way, transfers every which way, which we'll get to. The same can be said about Oregon. No Thibodeau. They lost their top 4 receivers. They lost Verdell, their running back, many weeks ago. But things start with Anthony Brown for Oregon. He will game manage a slow, run-heavy offense, and he's not very efficient as a passer or a runner. He's middling in both degrees, which kind of limits his upside at 7,100. Would rather just pay up for Williams on the other side or pay down for some of the quarterbacks we already mentioned. In the backfield, Travis Dye will handle a feature back role, averaging 85 rushing yards per game, and he's been phenomenal as a receiver too. 4 targets per game over the last 4. You can play Dye with confidence. Oklahoma's down their top 4 defensive linemen, all opting out for the NFL draft. So this should be a much better matchup than we see on paper. In the receiving game, no Devon Williams, no Johnny Johnson, no Jalen Redd, no Micah Pittman, which means Chris Hudson should be our number 1 receiver. Again, he has 21 targets combined over the last 3 weeks. There's just nobody else to play. Troy Franklin is a guy who's also stepped up, former 4-star for this team. He's now had 9 targets combined in the last 2 games, so he should play a much larger role in the offense as well. And then guessing Deontay Thornton is the wide receiver 3. Not sure what to make of him. This could be split. And tight end, they've rotated that position all year with Hudson and Troy Franklin being so cheap. Not sure there's necessity to get there. For Oklahoma, Rattler transferred. Not that that matters. Caleb Williams is the clear back now. And Caleb Williams has 408 rushing yards. The guy's basically started 6 games. So that's really important. He's been volatile as a quarterback, to say the least. A couple games near 300 yards, one over 400, and then a bunch below 200 for Caleb Williams. Just volatile, but the skill set is there. The athleticism is there. With a highest implied team total on the board, he's going to be your safest QB. Kennedy Brooks is not opted out, so Kennedy Brooks looks like the lead runner here. He has completely usurped Eric Gray, who just handles change of pace work. And even in the pass game, we've seen Kennedy Brooks take on a larger role. He's going to be a volume-based play in a decent matchup as a 7-point favorite. Again, no Thibodeau, and Oregon's also had some additional opt-outs on defense. In the receiving room, this is a complete mess. Jaden Haselwood transferred. Austin Stogner transferred. Looks like the top receiving options are going to be Michael Woods, Mario Williams, and Marvin Mims. Don't feel great about this. Wouldn't be surprised if a few others miss this game or opt out. But either way, this is going to be a nasty timeshare regardless. You have players like Drake Stoops and Braden Willis all mixing in here. If throwing darts, going with Marvin Mims makes the most sense because of his explosive ability. But Michael Woods and Mario Williams have both seen 4.7 targets per game over the last 4 contests. But that'll do it for our 3-game slate. Cross your fingers. Hope that we don't have any games missing. Let me know in the comment section who your favorite plays are. I am Matt Gajewski on Twitter, Matt_Gajewski. We'll catch you again later for the rest of bowl season. Have a good one, everyone.